Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Depending on where you are located geographically, you're on day number, who knows, on social distancing and harboring in place. There's definitely a lot of very real concerns these days, friends, family, finances. Some not so very real concerns, like gaining the, as my colleague would put it, the COVID-19 pounds. But if there's a silver lining in this coronavirus cloud, for many of us, it's time. That now we have those times to do this. We have time to do the things that we've been putting off, like reinvesting in ourselves. And that's really the goal of this 6-week series, is to help you make the best use of your time by connecting you with the people and the ideas that can inspire you. I'm really excited to introduce, we just went through the math, a friend for well over 15 years, Diane Fenig, who many of you know already as a longtime presenter for Forté. Diane stepped up right away and said, people need to use this time wisely. What can I do? And we were happy to take her up on it. So without further ado, Diane, I'm going to pass the baton to you.
Very good. So ladies, maybe some gentlemen in the audience, let's talk about connections that count. We've all met Rona. I'm really loving that we're calling this Rona. This person now it's kind of like calling it a storm. So we've all met Rona. Some of us don't love our Rona, but we've met Rona. We've got to meet Rona. And we're all in search of what will be the next normal. We don't exactly know. But what I'm hoping to share today are some ways to use this time, as Amy just said. Let's use this time in a very smart way. Let's use this time in a very sincere way with our current colleagues, our future colleagues, and the folks that we want to get to know a little bit better. I'm going to warn you right now, I'm starting with a song. Maybe many of you remember this. Make new friends, but keep the old ones. One is silver and the other gold. So if you're an old Girl Scout, you remember that song we'd sing around the campfire. And I think the important thing here is not one is better than the other. Both of them are so important. So I'm going to talk first about how to remember the old. So let's think about our old friends. And let's start with just checking in. You can check in any which way you'd like. If you are personal friends, you might check in with Facebook. But if you are business colleagues, let's check in on LinkedIn in a meaningful way. So, but let's just check in with folks. You can message someone privately, check in and say, how are you doing? Especially if you know they have 4 kids at home, they're trying to homeschool, and they've got, just a whole extended family under their roof. Why is it we wait for a funeral? The share a memory slide comes out of a funeral home. Why do we wait for a funeral to share those fabulous reasons and ways we connected with someone? Yes, it's important for the survivors to understand what your connection was to the lost person. But let's share these memories now. Let's use this time. And on a very personal note, just last month, I lost my dad, and people are calling me with all these fabulous stories. And I just hope that my dad heard them from them as well. Let's take the time in my dad's honor. Let's share the memories. Let's share the reasons why we connected with someone or what they've meant to us over our professional connection. This is such a great picture and such a great reminder of all of us need a little help right now. So how do you lift someone else up? When someone asks for something, how do you take an extra few minutes to get that done? And I love this picture as the sun is shining and the hands are out there and pulling someone up. We can do this each and every day, and it might be with just kind words. It might be with kind words in a card. It might be with a cute text. Somehow, how do we continue to lift each other up? Professionally and personally, those lines blur sometimes. Most of the folks on this call are really thinking about their professional connections, but how can we all think about our personal and professional connections, and how do we lift each other up in these times? Tag someone. This is such a perfect thing that most people don't think to do. And we do it in Facebook in a very different way. And I don't want to talk about Facebook for this. I want to focus more on LinkedIn. How do you tag someone with an article that you've written, that you've read, and you say, oh, Amy, this is your article. This reminds me of you because. Take the minute to do that. First of all, if you follow LinkedIn any, those tags are collected on your site. So someone can see that you're very generous with tagging others and mentioning people that have had a difference in your career. So it makes a lot of sense for you to take a minute to tag someone. Sharing with someone, again, an article of interest. That's right now, that's really important. People are sharing lots of different articles about this virus, but there might be something else that someone's saying about forecasting for the future. And you share it with someone saying, I'm thinking about you as I read this. You could also tag someone with a great quote. Some people say, I'm done with all the quotes on LinkedIn. I don't know. I think there's a time right now for some of those fabulous quotes. And tag someone and tell them why this means so much to you related to your time with them. Another idea. Goodness, so easy. We can do it all the way around the block. We can congratulate people for birthdays and anniversaries and work anniversaries. We don't take a lot of time to do this. Why don't we spend some time congratulating someone now? Congratulations, you made it to Wednesday. Sometimes that's how we feel. But a great time to celebrate something that has happened. In my news feed, I've seen a lot of people who've taken new jobs. Congratulations, taking a new job in the midst of all of this kind of craziness. Congratulations. Go, move forward, move mountains, you'll do it. And a great time now to also reflect on people that you work with and helping them know, you know what, you are a great teammate. Thank you for what you do. One of my teammates proofread something for me the other day, and it was invaluable to be able to share it with someone who knows you, knows your voice, and could offer some great feedback. And we take those things, we take advantage of those things and forget to say, thank you. I truly, truly appreciate that. So a wonderful time to tell your colleagues, thanks. I appreciate who you are. I appreciate what you do. I appreciate working with you. So again, those are some ideas of with our current people, the current folks that we know, our current work teams, because I think it's important to start with the folks we know first. But then we're going to kind of transition into who do we want to know? Who's on our list? Oh, forgot one of my favorite ideas right now within LinkedIn. And this hit me the other day. Why are we not taking a moment in our moments that we have an extra moment to write those recommendations? Sometimes people ask us for a recommendation. You can post one to LinkedIn. The person sees it before they post it to their site. And they might not agree with something. And they might say, love this, but I don't really like this mention of X. Or could you mention this instead? They have the opportunity to get some feedback on your recommendation on LinkedIn. But when it's unexpected, you know it's appreciated. And I made myself a commitment that I was going to do a few of these, and they have been invaluable. And people have come back saying, oh my gosh, Diane, I forget that that's how we've met. I forgot that's how we connected. Thank you for taking the time to do that. What an incredible way to boost someone by posting a recommendation that wasn't even asked for on LinkedIn. Again, LinkedIn is definitely the resource for our professional side of our world. And I love this link, and I found this. This student is in line for the Nobel Prize in the next 15 years. Take her or regret it. Regards, I think that was by Albert Einstein. But as we transition to new ideas, new connection ideas, everyone always has on their list the people they want to meet. And so start thinking about who you want to meet. Well, I'm gonna let you in on a secret to my great colleague Amy at Forté. There was somebody on my bucket list, and Amy helped me meet that person. But you can't meet those people on your bucket list without speaking up. You got to tell someone who you're looking for. So at an event, and I believe this event was for GMAC, the Graduate Management Admission Council. I can't remember the year, but Adam Grant was the guest speaker. Adam's first book came out, and I said, he is my people. He is it. I like what he writes about. It's all about give and take. It's all about who are the givers and the takers, and what are some of the characteristics behind this. And so I told Amy I wanted to meet him. I was also a speaker that morning. I was in the green room setting up, and I'm at my table, and I'm looking around thinking there might be an Adam Grant table. And I went to one of Amy's colleagues and I said, where might Adam Grant be? He's not with us. And she said, he's in a private room because he's our keynote this morning. I said, oh, okay. She said, why are you asking? And I said, I'm asking because I'd really like to meet him. And she goes, oh, okay. And so she went off, and Amy came back, and then someone came and said, come here with us. And I got to sit and have breakfast with Adam Grant. But you can't do those things if those are your bucket lists and they stay inside of your heart. You've got to speak up what's on your bucket list. Now, some people are a little on the unattainable side on a bucket list. You've got to be realistic. I thought it was pretty realistic because he was at least under the same roof with me. And I am just graced that I was able to sit and meet Adam Grant. His picture is still on my phone. So now is a great time to start thinking of who's on your bucket list by their title, by where they work, by their background, by seeing them speak or hearing them speak and saying, oh, they have a career I would like to emulate. They have a career I'm very interested in following. Figuring out who's on your bucket list. But let's make sure we do this in proper order. Let's create the list first, not start reaching yet, but start creating who your bucket list is. Because very important, after creating that list, you've got to do your homework. You've got to figure out how and what are your connections to that person. How could it be that you could meet that person? If you don't do your homework, you are going to not present yourself in the absolute best light. Never when we get a chance to meet someone do we say, where did you go to school? What's your degree? We can know all of that from a LinkedIn profile. We go to the tougher questions of what inspired you to write that book? What's your next research going to be about? Which are my questions to Adam. I'll never forget that. I was very curious of where he was taking his research as next. His next book out was Originals. Similar theme, but different twist. You've got to do your homework, and you've got to make that relevant to be meaningful to that person. But again, let's not get ahead of ourselves. I want to know who your bucket list is, and I want to know what your homework is, and then be prepared for your big ask. Pay attention, ASK, not the behind of us. What's your big ask? What do you want to know? What do you want to learn? And again, these things should not be available on their bio, on their website, through their LinkedIn profile. Those things you should already figure out before you get to a point of connecting with a new connection. But you've got to really think through what your big ask is. And generally, it's not the same ask of every person you want to meet. And I have to remind people, because everyone thinks it's one size fits all, and it certainly is not. When you think about who you want to connect with, start thinking about the questions you want to ask each person. Again, because these are not the same. And I warn you to get these questions in your head early, because somebody might offer some time to you before you're ready, and you won't have the benefit of these questions. So I encourage people to think long and hard of what your ask is. Think long and hard about your questions for this new potential new connection. And one of the best places to start with this new connection is the power of LinkedIn. As many of you know, you've been on my session of LinkedIn and my 7 deadly sins. My hat's off to my Catholic background. Within LinkedIn, it's so powerful because you can figure out who some people are, what their background is, where, if you connect at where you went to school. I made a connection the other day and someone came back and said, we're Miami folks together. And I always forget about my Mother Miami days. That would be Mother Miami in Oxford, Ohio. But those connections matter. Within LinkedIn, you can figure out at an organization where your connections are connected to people at that organization. So you can figure out your first line connections and connections within the organization and start working your second line connections and where those are and how do you need a connection point to get to that number 2. Someone the other day puzzled me and said, I wish I would have asked this on our call, asked this in the chat box about a LinkedIn connection. If you're trying to connect to someone who's a 3rd level connection to you, they're like, LinkedIn won't permit that. I said, no, not easily, but they will permit it if you do a little bit more digging. When you are in that person's LinkedIn profile, to the right of their picture are 2 boxes. One of them says more. Click on the more button, scroll down, and there's a connection option. Ha ha ha. Again, LinkedIn has made it not easy for you to find, but at least it's an easier way to get to them. So hit the more button, drop down, and get to connect. And I know no one on this call would ever make a LinkedIn connection without a personalized message. It makes no sense to do that. And the thing that LinkedIn does and makes it look way too easy to connect with people when it has your picture and a connect button underneath and you hit connect, 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 connect. The problem with that is it sends me the generic message. And I'm not interested in the generic message. I want to know why you want to connect with me. So use that box to send a personal message to everyone that you want to connect with. And here's where you tell me a little bit of your why in the connection, but you only have 300 characters. So a lot of people are like, I can't ask all of that here in the LinkedIn invitation. So start it, and then hopefully you will be connected to that person so you can finish that connection request and make that big ask. But use the power of LinkedIn to do this, and use the power of LinkedIn to figure out where you have connection points. And maybe you don't even realize that someone you have in your first level connection works at an agency. You don't even realize that they work at an agency that you're interested in. So again, use the power of this tool. It's the Rolodex that many of us remember from yesteryear in an electronic format, and it's fabulous. So use this well. Again, the 300 character invite that you can personalize. You might not have room for that ask, but at least make it intriguing enough that they do connect with you, and from that connection, make the ask. When you are permitted time with someone, and because most people's ask is, I want some time with you. I want 20 minutes by phone. When you're permitted that time, everyone goes for making it look like an interview. And I want a job at the end of this. And I really want you to focus on the word informational and focus on what can you learn from this person. Let's be candid with what's happening in our world right now. Our rear view mirror is got a lot more clarity than our front windshield. So with that, ask the questions with a rear view perspective. We can't know, and many people can't forecast what their future will look like. Someone connected earlier and said, what will my summer internship look like? And right now, maybe that employer is saying, I don't know what that'll look like quite yet, but I will at the end of the end of April, beginning of May. I will let you know how this will be conducted, if it will be conducted. And someone said, what do I do? Could I have that reneged? Yes, that could be a potential, because We might not be able to go physically to do an internship, but you might be offered something in a virtual capacity to maybe do a project as your internship in lieu of what you thought you would be doing. Focus here, though, again, on how do we have an informational interview? How do we learn something from that person? Again, focusing backwards. What's kept you at the organization? What's been the glue to keep you at XYZ organization for the last 25 years? You've taken 3 different, very different, distinct career paths in your time. What's kept you here? And you could ask, what do you think your next position would be? That's a very appropriate question. Instead of saying, what kind of job could I have at your company? Again, rear view look back at their kind of career path. That's what's really, really important. And again, focus on information. What can I garner? What can I learn from this person who's had this established career at this organization? Focus on the information you can gain from a person. Many people say, oh, you can get all of this off of Google. And I challenge you, I think you can get more from a person than you can off of Google. So with connection ideas, if you do have the opportunity to have 20 minutes with someone, and I challenge you right now, I think people are going to give you 20 minutes. Make sure you focus on it being informational. And make sure these connections know how appreciative you are of their connection. Thank you for the insights that you shared, over our time on the phone. Thank you for our virtual coffee. We got to meet via Skype. We got to meet using Zoom. Thank you for doing that. I like when people can do it. People always ask me to have coffee with them. They want me they want to meet me. And I say, but if I spend all of my day traveling around Atlanta to come and meet you for coffee, that's about 3 hours of my day. But I'm happy to do this way. Let's have a virtual cup of coffee instead. Get good with this technology, because guess what? We'll be using it more and more and more in the hiring practices going forward. But anytime you have a new connection, thank them and figure out if there's a way that you can support what it is they're doing as well. So important. How can you also support what they're doing? Because they might want to meet someone that you have a connection point to, or they might have a question that you might be the next lead to. I have to say something about appreciation and gratitude, because this is really important right now in the world that we live in. A moment of gratitude makes a difference in your own attitude. And I promise you show grace and you show thanks. It makes you feel a lot better as well. We should all be thankful for those people who rekindle our inner spirit. And some of these new connections that you make will rekindle something. Some of those old connections, and old in a good way, they're also going to rekindle things. So with that, that's kind of my spin on the things I think you should think of when you connect with former colleagues, when you connect with potential new colleagues, or potential new contacts, and a way to make them meaningful and a way to give them a sense of stability moving forward. So with that, Amy, any questions in the chat box? I always love when I get some help on that.
Of course. And actually, I've been directing people to use the Q&A box, and they've been
Q&A box,
even
excuse me.
Yeah, even moving their chats over. And there's some directly related to your content that you talked about throughout the last few minutes. Someone directly related to the most recent point, one of our inquirers wants to know, how do you have an informational interview without feeling that you're interrogating someone?
Well, again, you've got to do your homework, so there shouldn't be interrogation because you've done your homework behind it. But you might candidly say to someone, help me know, within the 20 years you've been at this organization, you've had 3 very different roles, because you want to figure out why they made those 3 choices, because it's not really evident by their LinkedIn profile. So that's not interrogating. People might say, I've got to tell you, I followed a boss 3 times. That's why I made those 3 pivots. There was no method to my madness. I followed a manager that I really respected, and really enjoyed working with, that's why I made those choices. And so maybe their lesson to you there couldn't be found in LinkedIn. It took a beautiful question to get to it.
Yeah, yeah. And another question, and a few people have had very similar questions, have to do with asking for recommendations and on LinkedIn. Is now the right time to do that?
Well, I think it's a very good time to do that because, again, people have the gift of a little bit more time. So one of the things I like, and people get put off sometimes when someone says, would you do a recommendation for me? I will often come back to you and say, help me know the top 3 stories you want to make sure I capture in your recommendation. Now, some people get very put off by that, but it helps me write them because it helps me understand what kind of recommendation they want and what it is they're looking for. And a lot of times I say to people, help me know what part of it do you want me to focus on? And sometimes people, I have not been in touch with them for so long and I haven't seen their work for a long time. It's really hard for me because I want to start that recommendation saying, I haven't seen this person's work over the last 7 years, but 7 years ago, that's a tough one. So it helps me if someone frames for me what it is they want me to speak to. If that makes any sense. So I like people to share the stories they'd like. I don't want, some people are like, here's a recommendation I'd like you to submit. Please submit this. If it's got my name on it, it's got to be my spirit. And so I don't always use those word for word as many would like. But it's helpful to see what someone puts in their recommendation. That's a little bit, to me, depending on how well you know that person, that crosses a bit of a line. But I rather come back and say, tell me the 3 stories you'd like. And so what you might say is, these are 3 things that I hope you remember me by as you ask somebody for a recommendation.
Great. Thanks, Diane. A lot of questions, again, on a similar topic, which is making new connections, reaching out during this time in particular, whether it's for job searching purposes or informational interviews.
And it's a rich time to do it. Figuring out, you got to figure out your bucket list and then back up from your bucket list who you want to meet and how do you kind of strategically get to those people. And I think the biggest thing is people start, it's kind of like aim, fire, ready. And I'm like, no, we got to think through this. If you've got people in your bucket list, you've got to strategically figure out how to get to each of those people, and it won't be the same way, the same path to every person. It takes a lot of background work to do that well, because the right recommendation to the right person to open a door could make all the difference. So you have to do that well. And so it takes a lot of preparation, but right now we've got the time for that. Prepare to make that, because usually you're reaching out to a person who you want to make another introduction to you. Now, in that case, I would write that note in such a way that that person could hit the forward button and make it very easy for them to get that information to the next person. Whether or not you put a resume with that, sometimes it depends on what it is you're looking for, if your resume belongs as attachment there or not. Some people right now, instead of putting a resume, are just putting LinkedIn profiles in there so people can know each other.
Great.
You can also
Great.
make recommendations through LinkedIn. You can introduce people through LinkedIn, so that's also an easy way to do it.
Oh, that's great, actually. And I want to follow up though on the recommendations on LinkedIn conversation. Should you offer recommendations, or do you wait for a person to tell you that they're willing to provide one? How does that work?
I think you can surprise someone with it. And again, that person gets to see it before it goes to their LinkedIn site. That person can decide if they want to post it or not. So if you write a recommendation that was unsolicited for someone, they see it first. And they can say deny, rewrite, or post. So, and again, it shows that you're thinking about someone. It shows that you're thinking about a former connection. And I can't think of any better way to show your gratitude for how you've gotten to know them than through a LinkedIn recommendation.
Great, great. Now, I want to switch gears a little bit. We had a question about developing and coaching team members when we're all in this state of disassociation. Any advice?
Coaching and developing teammates. I think the biggest thing is some one-on-one time with your teammates now, because everyone's reacting to this very differently. We get together and do a huddle call every morning, and we do it using Zoom so everyone can see everyone. But I think as a follow-up, it's nice to kind of connect with people one-on-one, because what they might show as their face on the Zoom call isn't how they're really feeling. So for me, it would be that kind of helps the team, but individually, how are you really doing? And one of the things I've said to many people these last few weeks, this has been a terrible experiment in working from home, because all the right factors haven't been perfect to set this up, because we've got kids at home with us, we've got spouses at home with us, we have partners home with us, we've got 7 people looking at the internet cable and all wanting their piece. This isn't ideal. But for someone who always works at home, this is no change to me. So it's not the same transition for me, because I always do this, than it is for somebody who's sharing their dining room table with 3 others. So I just think that personal one-on-one is extremely important right now, because the face you put out in Zoom for the team might not be how you're feeling inside.
Yeah, I think we can all relate to that. And actually, this next question is directly related to that, which is the messaging that you use to connect with people at this time. What if you are aware that someone has been laid off or furloughed because of their current situation?
Excellent.
What is some of the language that you would suggest we use?
So, and that's very real. People are furloughed and laid off right now. Start with saying, I've heard the news of your furlough. I've heard the news of your layoff. How can I help? I mean, those are powerful words. If you truly mean it, how can I help? What do you need? And, some people are like, they share the story. I've been laid off too. I'm like, well, at that moment, that person's saying that doesn't matter. Right now, I'm the one that's being laid off. So I say to people, just reaching out to folks and saying, I am so sorry to hear about this. How can I help? How can I help with my connections? What do you need? Many people, because of what I do, I often say, I'd be happy to look at your LinkedIn profile and your resume, because so many people want the confidence in their work. And so I say that to people all the time. It's like, what can you offer? How can you kind of help them through a very difficult time that they didn't anticipate? Because folks right now are losing their job by no fault of their own. This is much bigger than that, than the workforce.
Great, thank you. So we have quite a few on today's webinar that are either starting a new job or will be starting graduate school in their MBA program in the fall. And they want advice on how to create new connections. For some, they're starting in a new country. For others, they want to start in a new industry. How do you break into an area or an interest that you haven't been exposed to?
Well, the best part is when you're a student, there's a lot of doors that are open. So if, for example, someone's starting an MBA program and they might be coming out of communication and they're starting an MBA program with a focus on strategy. So they want to kind of, their new network, their new kind of group they're looking for are consultants with a strategy focus. And they're connecting with, say, alums of their program with that area. What a great way to start is, I'm going to start as an MBA from your alma mater, or I'm going to start as an MBA, but like you, remember back when you started, here's what I'm trying to do is build my network and build my connection points for my future. And just say, I'm using this time, I'm trying to learn from the best. I'm trying to learn from folks as I get into this program so that I can walk out in 2022 with even more information. And again, using the power of that informational interview. And as a student, again, that's the kind of thing you can absolutely use. And when you're getting out of industry and you're trying to switch industries, just say you're using this time to do some investigation in a new industry. And you might candidly say, I don't know what my job prospects will be moving forward. I don't know if my job will continue because right now it is a bricks and mortar location that we've now uncovered we don't need as bricks and mortar. I don't know that my job will continue in a fully online capacity. So with that, I'm investigating what the market looks like.
I actually like this question because it reminds me of how much good is still happening right now. And someone said, we asked the question about reaching out to people who might not be in a great situation, but what if you have good news to share? What if you are accepted into the MBA school of your choice, or if you have a new job, or if you just won an award and you want to share this information, but you want to do it in a way that doesn't make others feel bad, or make you seem insensitive to the larger crisis that's occurring right now?
I think there is this like fine line. Someone's like, enough of the awards right now. We have so much else that's going on. Here's I think the power here is we do have to have some good news amongst all of the other things. So sharing, in the middle of all of this, I'm switching roles, and at the end of next month, I'm switching roles to this job, this new opportunity with XYZ. And again, people want to say congratulations, but it's also a great place and a great way to keep those connections moving forward, because people won't know that you've moved unless you kind of announce that you're doing that. So I'm all about getting into an MBA program, again, moving that forward, starting your education, and in some cases, starting your education when maybe your work is not there. This is a perfect time for you to begin this process. That makes sense to announce that on LinkedIn. Also, if you're switching jobs, it makes a lot of sense to make that announcement. Awards that you're winning right now, I think I would hold those back a bit, but I think the other two I would push forward. I'm careful about some of the, salesperson of the year. I'm like, yeah, that's not what we are celebrating at the moment, but there'll be a time for that. But I don't think that time is right now.
Yeah, and we have time for probably 2 more questions, Diane. One of them has to do with dealing with colleagues, or I guess that could extend to friends and family who are struggling right now. They're clearly experiencing some type of stress. Any advice for engaging with them?
So I think a lot of people are experiencing stress, and kudos to the person who's realizing that some might be. I think the biggest thing is reach out saying, what can we do? How can we, we can't connect, but we can connect. We can connect and do a one-on-one and have a Zoom call and have a cup of coffee together, or do a Skype call together. When people are upset, how can you connect with them in a meaningful way, one-on-one, separate from everything else? I'm very graced in our neighborhood. We have a lot of walkers. And so I'm trying to take a walk with somebody different every day, although I end up with the same group of like 6 or 8. We keep our distance across the street, but we at least can, connect on a walk around the neighborhood. So we're getting some exercise and getting out. You got to do what you got to do. But if someone, just a quick text to someone, how are you doing? And then follow up with that and say, can we chat by phone? Texting back and forth is good for only so far. I think hearing someone's voice and making that phone call and kind of making an appointment of when you can chat by phone is important.
Great, thank you for that. I want to circle back for the final question. You talked a lot about reaching out to people, connecting with them, and requesting informational interviews. How do you follow up? Once besides the thank you note, what is the next step beyond an informational interview? How do you maintain connection?
It's like, because you want to keep that connection alive. So when you connect with someone, and one of the things that LinkedIn took away was a fabulous tagging option in which you could remind yourself how you knew people. They took that away. They had my rich 20 years of tags, which they probably are using against me, but how do you keep up with someone? And then when an article comes out, I'm connected to someone who does a lot of things in community affairs and sustainability. An article comes out about their company and how they've just been awarded a sustainability award. You again, connect with them, sharing them, shouting out to them, tagging them. Congratulations on this incredible award across Atlanta. You and your company continue to do great work. Again, that's a way you continue to make that a meaningful connection, is when you continue to do those things. And sometimes you can use the holidays to reconnect with people. You know, when it comes to Thanksgiving, how do you kind of open up your book and say, who are some people in my LinkedIn network I haven't connected with? And who gets a real personal note because it's Thanksgiving? We can use the holidays and the seasons to do that with our connection points. And it just shows that we're good people. Bottom line, we're good people.
Diane, thank you so much. I can say for certain that you're good people. Thank you for doing this. I saw by the flood of questions, the interest, the large attendance numbers. This is a time where we're all just trying to figure out how to maneuver through, and we really, really appreciate your sharing some best practices with us. Many of you have asked about accessing other of Diane's content and materials, and I will say that we're lucky enough she does a series for us. You have to be a premium access member for Forté, but it's a coffee and career series. So if you are a premium access member and you want those past recordings, please reach out to me at amy@fortefoundation.org. If you are not a premium access member, please feel free to reach out to me as well, amy@fortefoundation.org, and I can give you information on that, or you can just look at our website. Again, we're going to be meeting every week for 6 weeks, different topics, but all relevant. Diane, thank you so much for your time today.
You're welcome, and everybody keep the Girl Scout song in mind. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.